Hey guys, welcome to Lego Lord of the Rings. Uh, this isn't a really video on that. It's a review, classic. I love doing reviews. So recently, I have been watching a decent amount of TV, and I watched the Lord of the Rings show. I'm going to start off the review on that and then move on to the Lord of the Rings movies, which I haven't seen in a long time, so I decided to kind of binge. So, beginning off with the show. Okay, the show is one of the most expensive shows I have ever seen. $60 million per episode is a decent amount, and it really shows. The CGI is phenomenal, and their scenes are great. They do a good job at treating it like, of course, Middle Earth, like you see in the movies. And it is just great. The story, on the other hand, is also pretty okay. I didn't mind it, and while watching The Lord of the Rings, I couldn't help but doing the Leonardo DiCaprio meme and pointing out the fact that I noticed something that is similar to the show, and characters that I didn't recognize from the show that I now do recognize because of the movies. It truly was a good experience. The stories themselves weren't the most compelling, as I felt like there were some stories that I liked more than the others. Specifically, the story featuring Elrond and Durin wasn't the most exciting story, but it was my favorite because of how wholesome it was. It was a very nice touch. A break between the adventure-based stories. Galadriel's story, along with Halbrand, had a good story and definitely had the best twist out of all of the storylines. It wasn't my favorite of the storylines. It was probably actually closer to the end, my least favorite, as it kind of just built up to one thing that didn't really have too much real downsides to. I can't spoil because then people will be mad at me, but yeah, it really felt like during that storyline there wasn't a lot of downsides to what they were doing, and it felt like just no, repercussions for things that they are doing wrong or right. There's only one repercussion, and it is a huge repercussion, which is why the story isn't the worst. It is actually probably why that, in the end timeline of things, is the best of the storylines. Okay, then talking about the third storyline, the Harfoot storyline. I'm not sure if Harfoots are supposed to be like pre-hobbits, but they gave me lots of Hobbit vibes. And the fact that the story references such a huge character for the Lord of the Rings franchise, it was pretty nice to see. I'm not going to say which character because that will spoil a lot. Of course, the Harfoot story was definitely the most boring of the stories for the most part, as it wasn't very action-packed, nor was it wholesome. It just kind of was there. But in the end, after finishing the entire show, I realized how important that story truly meant to the rest of, the Lord of the Rings story itself. You don't have to like the Lord of the Rings movies to like this show. As the show, I didn't remember a single bit of the movies. Well, not a single bit. I remembered, tiny bits of the movie, specifically from, actually, Lego Lord of the Rings. And, yeah, I couldn't really seem to find out, what exactly I remembered about the story. I knew about Death Mountain, I knew about Sauron, the Eye of Sauron, uh, the wizard characters, the hobbits, the elves. I didn't know the elves' names specifically though, and I did know that there was at least 3 rings of power. Of course, after finishing the show and starting the movies, I realized there was 3 Rings of Powers for the elves specifically, and then I felt kind of like a fool, as the entire story builds up to the creation of the certain rings. I'm not going to spoil which rings, as, again, there's a lot of rings. There's 3 for the elves, there's, 7 for the dwarves, and, 9 for men, and 1 ring to rule them all, Sauron. And yeah, it was nice and refreshing to see a show not focus too much on, speeding through it, as each episode was 75 minutes long, and it truly felt like they kind of felt a little drawn out at some points, especially with the Harfoot story being the most boring. But in the end, it definitely was not a bad show. I wouldn't put it on my top shows of this year, but it won't be super far down, as this show definitely wasn't bad, and I don't know why people aren't talking more about it. The only review website that I've seen that has reviewed it bad is IMDb, which reviewed it a 6.9 out of 10, which is still not awful. I would give the show a 7.9 at least, as the story was definitely not the best, and it was quite slow at times, but that's just kind of the Lord of the Rings franchise. And if you like that kind of thing, then you'll definitely like this show. I'm a huge fan of Star Wars, so I obviously like stuff kind of like this. Very mythological, chosen one kind of stuff. Huge villain, I like that kind of stuff. And as you know, Lord of the Rings and Star Wars isn't similar, but they kind of follow a long format. A story that doesn't build the story, it builds the characters instead of the story, which isn't always everybody's cup of tea. So I'm not sure if people really like those movies or not. Now getting on to the movies, as I binged watched them, and I think it's been around 7 or 8 years since I've watched those movies. The first one was very much a film. I don't really know how I would describe it. It features a lot of things that I can praise it for, as its backgrounds were stunning, the makeup for the orcs are great. The ring wraiths feel like an actual villain character that the main character isn't going to be able to stop anytime soon. And that's kind of what I like about the series. The main character is definitely not the strongest character, which is what I like in a lot of stories where there's a main character. I like in stories when a main character is not the most powerful. The main character has to work his or her way up the ranks. But this story of the 3 movies never really does that for the character. And I actually kind of like this. The character doesn't grow in a strength-based way. He grows in an emotional-based way. As everything in this franchise is, trying to show you friendship is what matters. It's a very corny storyline, but again, it builds up the characters, and that's what I'm looking for. The first movie definitely has the least amount of characters, and I find it quite odd that Samwise, or just Sam, the gardener, randomly chooses to go on the adventure and continue on the adventure. I found that quite weird. Of course, by the end of the movie franchise, you see that they grow close to each other by a decent amount, which makes sense. They by the end of the story, you've heard that it's been 13 months, so a year and a month since they left. So they definitely had a lot of time to grow close together. But what I don't understand is that Sam stayed for so long. As in the first movie, he has every chance to leave. He's not even really Frodo's friend from my mind. In my mind, he is literally just a gardener. And I'm not sure if that's true to everybody else, but it was definitely true in my mind. I felt that Frodo wasn't really a friend with friends with Sam until the journey with the ring. It didn't make 100% sense to me, but that's just a small nitpick. Aragorn was a cool character. He wasn't the main character for sure, as Frodo definitely didn't carry, but he definitely was a main focus of the story. The story truly focused on Frodo, and then it had that story of Aragorn. If you guys haven't seen the movies, I'd be surprised because they are relatively older movies. They're not like super old, like in that sense. There is a lot of different things that I can say about the first movie. The first movie, though, is pretty good. It wasn't awful. It was definitely a Lord of the Rings movie, and it definitely was a mythological type movie. It wasn't the greatest, nor was it the worst, though. I'm going to give that one a 8 out of 10. I liked the movie a decent amount, and I don't think it was that bad. Okay, the second movie, on the other hand, I thought was pretty good as well. I actually relatively liked all three of the movies. Spoiler alert. Really, the second movie really got more of the fighting going on, as it had a lot of, oh yeah, we gotta defend this, oh yeah, we gotta do this, and it went relatively faster in comparison to the first movie, which was a slow, long journey with little bits of combat happening. This one was a lot more long scenes and then long combats. Of course, the third movie was even more long scene, long combat. It was the longest of the films, but again, I don't truly mind long films. If you don't like long films, you won't like this, but like, it's just sitting down for 3 hours watching a movie. Like, you don't necessarily need to like, you don't necessarily need to care about the time if it's, it's just a movie. I don't know, you would really care too much about the time, as long as you like the franchise, And yeah, the second movie introduces us to characters like Gollum and Smeagol, and they do a great job at putting a split between. And the fact that the voice actor for Smeagol is the guy who played Alfred in the Batman, and the guy who played, same guy who played Claw in Black Panther, I just found that crazy. Of course, I knew this going into the franchise. So he did a great job. And really, the second movie was, again, getting closer to the end. It shows how characters feel betrayed, such as Gollum feels betrayed, and it does a nice job at putting in a part for every character. That's what's good about the franchise, the books included, as Merry and Pippin for the first movie felt useless, and then they get their roles in this movie, and their roles will continue in the third movie. Gandalf comes back, and Gandalf always feels underused, as his magic is just powerful. But they use him in the third movie for sword fights, and that didn't make a lot of sense to me. I'm talking about the third movie a bit now, and he doesn't use his magic a lot in this franchise, and I find that weird. Of course, we can't continue this review on without talking about the final movie, which, of course, Return of the King. It's definitely a lot better. Oh, yeah, sorry. We can't continue. Sorry, I completely forgot what I was about to say. We can't continue without giving it a review. I think this one is an 8.1. Literally 0.1 better than the first movie. It definitely explained a lot of things, and again, this is full opinion, but that's just how I felt. I felt like the movie was just like a longer, more drawn out version of a longer, more drawn out, with more action and more explanation than the first one. It wasn't a lot longer either, but yeah, I liked it. I liked it 0.1 better, but this final movie I liked definitely a lot better. 8.5. I'm gonna say that right now. As the final movie was 3 hours long, and the ghosts feel overpowered, but it kind of makes sense. They're ghosts, and everything really wraps up. And I know Screen Rant Pitch Meeting made fun of the ending that continues going on for a very long time, really. I actually kind of liked that. The ending, because the ending of the story does not truly end with Frodo's end of his story. It ends with Sam, who is the best character. I like all the other characters, but Sam just did so much, and it just didn't make a lot of sense to me. Sam is just such a good person. Samwise, of course, not Arya. I'm just joking. Arya is perfectly fine. Either way, Samwise, story truly doesn't come to an end. It ends with a beginning of his true parenthood, and that's, he's a parent now, and Frodo kind of ditches him. Frodo kind of sucks, though. And you see that throughout this movie, that Frodo is an awful person, and it just makes so much sense to me. And that's what I like so much about this movie. It shows that Frodo ain't good, it's Sam. Samwise does, the best job. He's a gardener who followed his boss all the way to a freaking volcano, despite constant, I don't like you, you shouldn't stay with me, screw you, man, get out of here, I don't want to listen to you about this psycho, and many more. And I just find it, it's just funny to me. And it makes the final movie all better, as Frodo truly isn't a good main character. He's a bad main character. He's an awful person. And then it ends off with Sam. Samwise, who is the true best character. And that really concludes my review. I'll probably be playing more of LEGO Lord of the Rings, because why not? Just like LEGO Harry Potter. And yeah, I just wanted to say, we are so close to 500 videos. By next week, we should have our 500 video special, and I'll probably do an announcement on that next week. I'll probably do more videos still next week. Upcoming for this week, we got new Demon Slayer review, character review on Daki. I haven't really had the chance to play her, so I got to play her this weekend. And I think November 14th it said. I don't remember though, but the other guy should come out, Daki's brother, and that should really conclude that series, as I'm not sure when we're going to get more DLC, and if we're going to get more DLC, such as a story pack for the story, a skin pack. We got the summer outfits, but I didn't really want to buy that. So yeah, thank you all for watching this video. I'll be playing more LEGO Lord of the Rings in the future, and also, I'm very excited for 500. I'll see you guys then, or tomorrow, really. But after that video, I'll see you guys for a stream on Friday. See ya!